Okay, Jesse, this is kind of a test here. I don't even know if I'm on the camera, but hope so. This is the original box here, and I don't know how this is showing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this thing. Well, this is take two. The first one didn't have any sound, so let's try it again here and see how it works. This is the original box that it was shipped. Let's see here, I'm having trouble. Oh, I'm so dumb it sometimes scares me. I had the volume turned down on the TV, so here we go. This is the original box that Frank Anderson got. He was with the Electric City Radio Company in Great Falls, Montana. And the way I found out about this computer was back in '82. I was at a conference with Steve Jobs, and he told the story of the Apple I, and I knew right then and there I had to have one. And with the help of Mike Murray, who was manager of marketing at the time, he helped me out and put me onto this one because Frank had written Apple a letter in early '83 trying to get it running. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And so I contacted Frank, and we eventually made a deal. And when I was at Frank's out in Great Falls, Montana, picking this thing up, he told me about another one, which I subsequently found and was able to buy later on. And that is the one that I sold to Jean-Louis Gasset. He found out I had the thing, and he had to have it. So he started out offering me a Macintosh for it, an SE30. I said, no, don't want one. And it kept getting bigger and bigger, and finally he was going to give me a full-blown Mac 2 system with a laser writer and a bunch of software. And I said, I don't need one. I got one on my desk already. So at the time we were ready to buy a new van at a cost of about $15,000, so that's how we arrived at the price. And so the story goes, Jobs and Wozniak sold their van to finance the Apple I, and I sold my Apple I to finance our new van. Now, I'll get some close-ups of this with the macro or micro whatever lens setting in a minute, so you kind of really get a clearer picture of this. But this is the foam packing that it came with. I hope this is showing up here. This is the basic cassette. This is on Scotch brand C60 Highlander, low noise, 60-minute tapes, 30 on each side. It says basic on it. I'll get a close-up of that for you so you can see it. And guess what? There my phone rings. Nobody else is home. Be back in a minute. Huh. They didn't even wait for me to get to the phone. I'll probably call back as soon as we get going here again. This is like a green foam. This is the cassette interface. Fits right in there. If you bought it, that was optional. This pulls out, and there's your Apple I, again laying on another piece of foam. Let me just set the box down here. And this board has seen very, very little use. It was working the last time it was tried. It has the extra 8K of memory added to it. And I'll tell you in a minute why Frank did that. It's in pristine condition. There are no scratches on it. It's just about the way it came out of the garage, believe me. This is the invoice. Again, I'll do a close-up on that in a minute, and I'll kind of read to you what it says. But I think this is so neat because this is the invoice you buy at a business supply. It's ready form, poly pack of 50. They're generic everyday invoices. You type in your own company name. The salesman is Stephen, which was Stephen Jobs. It also came with a glossy slip sheet advertising the Apple One on this side. This is kind of a neat piece in itself. I'm sure there aren't too many of these in existence. And on the back side is the original Apple logo, the price list. The Apple One was $666, the cassette interface was $75, and the expansion memory to go from 4K to 8K was another $120. And Frank added that, so man, this thing is loaded. It doesn't have the 20K that they promised it could expand to. To my knowledge, there's only one person that ever took him up on that deal. That's a professor at Stanford, and I've got a letter from him telling about it. This is the letter that Frank received from Steve. Frank didn't know how to hook this thing up, and it tells about what kind of keyboard should be used and what kind of a TV monitor will work. And then it says we're going to send you some forms for an open account sometime in late January of '77 or early February. So this letter was, like I say, in January or in December of '76, shortly after Frank bought it. The manual is quite a piece. This is that original logo, and I'm sure you heard the story about the guy that did the logo and the schematic. And Ford, he got 10% of the company, but they bought him out for $800 or something like that. Here's the original schematic. Yeah, here's the guy's name. R. Wayne drew it. My dog is barking. There must be somebody coming. So if I leave in a moment, I'll be back shortly. We'll go through this again a little bit closer up in a moment. The one thing that it didn't have, and Frank couldn't find it, was the cassette interface manual, but my other Apple One had that. So I made a Xerox of it, thinking ahead, and I have a Xerox copy of the cassette interface manual. It's not the original, but for some reason that got lost out at Frank's in Great Falls, Montana. Let's do some close-ups here, and what I'll do is I'll get the computer and set it on close range, or get the computer, I'll get the camera, set it up on close range here, and we'll I'm a master at props here. You can see I got a towel underneath and a board behind it, and I got the dog shut up now. She was out chasing a squirrel. So here's the box. Let's do a little close-up on it here. It says fragile. It's been marked. It was shipped by UPS. Now I'm hoping that shows up okay there on the video. Apple computer, 11161 Christie Drive, Los Altos, California. Yeah, according to Woz, that was the address of Steve Jobs' mom and dad, and the garage where these things were built, of course, and the address of where it was shipped, which was the Electric City Radio Supply in Great Falls, Montana, and the owner's name there was Frank Anderson. The box opens up like so, and then it had, of course, this piece of foam in the bottom. Okay, let me get something else set up here. Okay, there's the basic cassette that they sent with it. It had, I assume, integer basic on it, and as you can see, they apparently just went to the drugstore somewhere and bought some Scotch brand tape, typed up a little label that said basic on it, And I venture to guess if we look at the type on the letter from Steve Jobs, it probably came out of the same typewriter that belonged to his mom or dad. The cassette interface board is this piece right here. And I don't know, let me put a little more light on that. That might help it a little bit. Well, let's do this. Let's even... Let's, never mind me here, just bear with me, and let's go maybe with the light off, that might even be a little better, maybe not. Well, at any rate, that's your cassette tape interface card. And as you can see, it hasn't really been used very much. Okay. Here's one of my favorite pieces here. This is the original invoice. This is the white copy. I assume it had other color copies that somebody else has. But this is a ready form poly pack of 50. You go to the business supply and you buy these things, and you make your invoices out. Let's zoom in on some addresses here. Now, 770 Welch Road, as I recall, and the phone number belonged to an answering service in a place where they had their mail sent. It was not an office building or office or anything like that. It was just an answering service and a mail drop that they started out using. And I suppose if one wanted to research, there's the address. I'm sure 770 Welch Road is still in Palo Alto. There's Frank's address and the date shipped, December 7th, 1976. Now, this is sort of interesting, and before this very moment, oh, I see. I don't think he knew how to fill out an invoice that says 2 Apple cassette interfaces, and there was only one in there. I suppose that was item number 2, huh? Item 1 is the Apple 1, and item number 2 is the Apple cassette interface. Beats me. Well, there's the price over there. The salesman is Stephen, that's Jobs. Wozniak spelled his name S-T-E-P-H-E-N. So when he saw the invoice, or a copy of it that I sent to him, he said that was definitely Jobs. He said, I didn't know he was selling them out of the house, which I thought was sort of interesting. Also, if you buy 5 units, you get a credit of $161. I think if this thing had worked out, Frank might have sold them, but he didn't. So, alright, so that's the invoice. Let's just kind of zoom back here. Yeah, shipped by UPS, and it was prepaid. This is another piece that was included in there. It's their advertising glossy flyer. It's kind of a neat piece because it describes the whole system and shows nice close-up of everything. And then on the back side it shows the cassette interface, and of course that famous original Apple logo. Bite into an apple. What a slogan. Okay, let's get the manual here. The manual, yeah, I guess that's in there. Operation manual, got the logo on the front, and it's not a very in-depth one. It's fairly technical. There's the Welch Road Suite 154 address in here. Little tear down here at the bottom. I guess Frank was a little rough with it. There's the hex monitor listing. And here's the schematic, the blueprint. Let me try zero in on the names here a little bit. I don't know if this will show up, but yeah, there you go. These were drawn by R. Wayne. That would have been April 2nd, 1976. Woz did his design on March 10th. Jobs on April 2nd also. But that Wayne guy, he's the one that for doing the blueprints and the logo and all that stuff, I think they cut him in like for 10 or 20% of the company, and the story is that Jobs bought him out for $800 and nobody's heard from this guy since. That's probably an exaggeration, but that's the story. There's so many stories that fly around this machine that some more blueprint stuff, and there's your warranty and the back cover. This is my favorite piece, without a doubt. This is the letter that Frank received back from Stephen Jobs' Apple computer, and it was in response to a question that Frank had about what keyboard should work and what monitor, and must have asked about possibly a dealership or something also. And let's see if we can read this thing here. There. Hello. I'll answer your questions, he goes on, and says almost any ASCII encoded keyboard will work as long as it has positive data outputs, positive logic, which includes 99.9% of all ASCII keyboards. We use keyboards made by Datanetics out of Fountain Valley, California, near LA. Okay. Second thing says to use a Sony TV115 for the video monitor device, you must either connect the Apple to its video input and adjust the level pot on the Apple for the right level. I don't know if the Sony TV115 is a monitor or not, or purchase an RF modulator and feed the video in through the antenna terminals. Finally, he says we will be sending around the forms for an open account sometime in late January 77 or early February. If you have any further questions, please call or write. Respectfully yours, Stephen Jobs, Apple Computer. Now, this is kind of interesting. Jobs, when he typed his name, used the capital S and the capital J, but when he signed it, he didn't. Let's see, let's go in a little closer on that. I don't know if this is showing up well or not, but so that was the an early example of Apple's stationery. Now, I've got another letter, and this happened early in '82. Frank, when he got this thing back in '76, tried to hook it up and said to heck with it. It's not going to do his business for him. And it sat on the shelf until early '82 when him and a friend wanted to try get it running. So they wrote to Apple. This is early '82 now, And notice they're stationary with the faint green apple there. Kind of neat now. And of course by this time Apple pretty much disavowed all knowledge of an Apple I. It says, thank you for your inquiry. There's not much information or support available for the Apple I. I've included the technical information I could find. Many of the parts are no longer being manufactured, but may be available from retail electronic houses. Good luck. Well, Frank did manage to get this thing hooked up, and he did some programming with it, and soon found out that an Apple II was more fun, and put it back on the shelf until I got it in late '83. Now, I've got another letter. I just got to show this to you. Here's a copy of another letter that was with my other Apple that I sold to Cassette. And this was written in October of 1977. And I'm covering up the name and address of this fellow for one simple reason. Is because he still has another Apple I. And I'm not going to tell the world about it so they beat a door path to his door, but maybe someday. He doesn't want to sell it, but maybe someday he will. And but anyhow, they wrote to this guy. I gotta read you this. This is fun. This guy wrote in and he wanted some support for his Apple I, and he says, I am very sorry. Your letters have apparently been bent, folded, spindled, and mutilated. However, I hope we can reward your patience somewhat by returning your money order with the tapes you requested. Enclosed you will find a $6 check for the manual that you ordered, because the preliminary manual you have is all that there is. When we built and sold the Apple I, we were a company of 2 people working more or less out of a garage. Today Apple employs 20 people, most of whom arrived after we began selling Apple IIs. So Apple I and its owners, I'm afraid, have been getting the short shrift. Your case has changed all that. Apple I was for hobbyists who wanted to develop hardware and software on their own. We will not be developing any software for the Apple I. Apple II, however, will be served by all of Apple Computer's resources, since it is not just for hobbyists, but a true professional or personal computer. If you would rather have Apple developed software and peripherals, we'll recommend Apple II over Apple I. In your case, don't tell anybody, we'll give a discount of $100 on an Apple II system or board. This is only available direct from Apple. Again, I'm sorry you were ignored. That's not the way we set out to do business. That's not the way we intended to do business in the future. We have set up duplicating facilities for Apple I programs, and we will serve Apple I customers better in the future. Thanks again for your patience. You're a valued customer. If there's anything more we can do, don't hesitate to write. Your letters will get priority attention, I promise. Best regards, A.C. Markula. So this was Mike Markula, Vice President of Marketing, and he sent him 9 tapes and an Apple I cassette, interface booklet, preliminary manual, money order, and a refund check. So that's another kind of early Apple lore stuff there. Here's the Apple, a little closer view of it. Let me turn the light on and see if that helps a little bit. Maybe it's too much reflection, but we'll try it off here again. Let me zoom in on it and kind of show you. There's the Apple Computer I, Palo Alto, California. Copyright 1976. There's the processor chips. 6502. My other one had a white 6502 processor chip in it. This one's got a black one. Frank had the extra 8K of memory put in. So this is a real huge memory on this one, but as you can see, the board has not been abused in any way. Nothing extra soldered onto it, no scratches, unlike another one I've seen. A few of them really got hacked up by hobbyists who added this and that to them, and there's the expansion portion of it right up there, and that's where a lot of things usually got added in. Let me show you the back side. There's a little sticker on the back there that says, I don't know if you read that, it says 82. And as was if that might have been a serial number. He really doubted it. He didn't know what it meant. But on that letter, it's written in pencil number 82 on it, so I don't know if it was number 82 in the Apple line. No, I doubt that. At any rate, there's the backside. According to Woz, the only boards that got serial numbered were those sold by the Byte Shop. My other one was serial numbered. It was serial numbered right here. It said 01-0005, so it was serial number 5. That's the one that I sold to Cassette. The Computer Museum has serial number 8, but those came from the Byte Shop, unlike this one that came directly from Apple. So with that, what I'm going to do here, I think, before I shut the camera off, you're probably bored and half asleep here by now, but oh, there's the Apple I cassette interface reprint, and it's just a small 4-page thing with a warranty information, and it tells how to hook it up, but I do have that to go with it. What I want to do here, I thought, was tell you about Frank's story, because this is really, you know, the history of the computer. I've owned it, but it's just sat in the box in my cupboard. Frank typed up a little history of it when I went out to Great Falls and got it from him in fall of '83. And this is what he had to say. It said, back in the mid-'70s and being in business, an electronic business, a need was seen for a better accounting system, one that would give us a weekly business picture rather than waiting until the following year to see what happened. By this time it was too late to go back 6 or 8 months and make corrections. At this time we were selling and reading the hobby computer magazines that were just coming out. Most hobby-type computers at that time were programmed with a row of switches and read with a row of lights. Anything with a keyboard and a printer of any sort and any sort of memory was the price of a Cadillac or a Lincoln car. About this time, a couple guys in California came out with their version of a computer that used a video monitor for looking at data and would use a standard keyboard for inputting data. It also had a cassette tape for file storage. This looked like something practical, and the price was not out of reason, so we ordered one. It was called the Apple I. It came as advertised, just a populated board. The basic power supply was easy to come by. We modified a TV set for a monitor, but the keyboard was quite a problem to find and get working right. After some indication that the unit was trying to do something, it looked as if vocabulary was limited to things between 0 and F and combinations of. Could not even get the basic cassette to do anything. Us not knowing the difference between hardware and software and lacking the time to do the research, the Apple I ended up on a shelf collecting dust. In the early 80s, having sold the business and with some time, we decided to get the Apple running. First get the keyboard working, and then figure out how to program in machine language. This was no small chore. After this came the basic interpreter and adding more memory into the Apple, all 8K. The basic language proved too basic to be of much use, but by the time the computer hobby bug had bit us and we started looking towards better things. The logical route to go was to get an Apple II populated board and substitute for the Apple I board. Trying to get this or any other parts out of Apple organization proved next to impossible. Eventually a bare Apple II board was found, parts were found to stick on it, 1,000 solder connections, and we did eventually get it running with the peripherals that were used on the Apple I. We did manage to hook up a matrix teleprinter to the Apple I, which was handy for printing out machine language programs. So in early 80s, Frank did manage to get it to run, and then he put it back in the box when his Apple II came to be. And like I say, late in 83 is when I bought it from him, and at that time he knew it was going to be a collector's item. I didn't get no deal on it at that point in time either. I paid many times over what he paid for it, and it's been sitting here ever since. I've had it displayed a couple times at the MEC building for special occasions, and at a conference or two I've shown it to people. But for, like I said, the past 5 years it's pretty much just been sitting in the cupboard and not seen the light of day. So with that, I hope I've given you an idea of what's here, and I'll get this videotape in the mail tomorrow, and you can see what this thing looks like to you. And I guess what I'm asking is what you think your best offer is going to be on it. And I'll tell you one thing: it's not going to go as cheap as one might want it to. Of course, I know we all want to get a deal on it, but I think this is just a piece of history that you won't find another example in this condition or this complete. So with that, good luck. I hope this was enough information for you, and give me a call when you've had a chance to look at it and think it over, and we'll see what we can work out. I could show you how this all fits in there. This thing, it lays on a piece of foam on the bottom, and this other piece of foam has been pre-cut to let the heat sink and the capacitors fit up there. This shoves down in here, and then your basic cassette tape fits right in there. Your cassette interface, and there's a piece of foam to protect those pieces, and then the manual and the other paperwork can fit right in there, and then it will shut up. So this just kind of folds down, and so that's how the box works.